Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit, where global policy and piston-powered analysis collide. The 51st G7 summit in Alberta wasn't just another diplomatic roundtable. With rising tensions in Ukraine and the Middle East, and Trump exiting early in a cloud of controversy, the summit took a sharp detour. But while the US backed out, Canada's Mark Carney floored it, signing bilateral deals and shifting the G7 into a high-performance recalibration. Buckle up. This one's more than just photo ops. It's a race to redefine alliances. Trump hits the brakes early, and the G7 sputters. The most striking turn of events? Trump pulling out of the summit early on June 16th, citing the Iran-Israel crisis. While the White House tried to frame it as statesmanship, French President Macron suggested a ceasefire push, which Trump vehemently denied, slamming Macron as publicity-seeking. The real fallout? Without the US in the room, unity stalled like an engine with a misfiring cylinder. The G7, now functioning as a G6+1, couldn't even deliver a joint statement on Ukraine. The remaining leaders cobbled together a watered-down message on Gaza and Iran, but the absence of American support exposed deep transatlantic fractures. Trump's earlier remarks, calling Russia's 2014 G8 expulsion a mistake, only fueled discord. On trade, it didn't get better. A narrow tariff deal with the UK offered a glimmer of progress, but efforts with Germany and Japan spun their wheels. This wasn't a detour, it was a dead end. As the Rockies towered overhead, the G7's image of unity had clearly skidded off course. But with Washington idling, Ottawa shifted gears fast, and that's where Canada took the wheel. Canada's diplomatic overdrive redefines the summit. With the US absent, Prime Minister Mark Carney grabbed the wheel, and Canada didn't just steer the G7 back on track, it redlined the strategy. Rather than chase a flimsy group consensus, Carney opted for high-octane bilateral diplomacy. First up, Japan's Prime Minister Ishiba. Carney sealed deals on LNG, modular nuclear tech, battery supply chains, and defense collaboration. These weren't empty gestures. They committed to technical task forces and follow-ups. Then came Germany's Chancellor Merz. Their meeting focused on AI, quantum research, and energy resilience, securing Canada's place in the emerging tech fast lane. The UK's Keir Starmer wasn't left idling either. Carney backed Britain's CPTPP entry, launched a $7 million Canada-UK cyber fund, and formalized partnerships in AI and aviation safety. Macron celebrated a transatlantic aerospace win, a deal for LOT Polish Airlines to buy 40 Canadian-built A220s, revving up Quebec's job market. Italy and the EU followed with their own agreements, including an anti-organized crime initiative and the launch of the Critical Minerals Production Alliance. Carney's pivot? All traction, no spin. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe to Piston Pundit, your go-to source for vehicle policy, global auto shifts, and strategic engine room analysis. Now let's shift from diplomacy to economics, because trade too hit some serious bumps. Trade turbulence reveals the fault lines beneath the smiles. Beneath the summit's surface-level civility, economic tension lurked like a ticking engine warning light. Yes, the US and UK reached a narrow tariff agreement, and Canada-US talks promised a framework within 30 days, but skepticism lingered like exhaust fumes. Canada shifted gears with the UK, drafting legislation to support Britain's CPTPP entry, while deeper trade talks with the EU, Japan, and Germany yielded little rubber on the road. EU President von der Leyen expressed concern over Washington's unpredictable tariff moves and eroding WTO norms. Still, there was traction where it mattered: the creation of the Critical Minerals Production Alliance. Designed to curb China's chokehold on rare earth supply chains, the pact showed Canada's intent to lead a democratic counterweight. Yet digital standards, Ukraine aid, and energy tariffs remained potholes on the summit road. Business leaders applauded the ambition but warned that without enforcement, these promises could stay parked indefinitely. As one Canadian insider said, "Trade today isn't written in communiques. It's built, bolt by bolt, bilateral by bilateral." That, Right there was the real shift in the G7's transmission. But beyond deals and deficits, the summit was also a proving ground for next-gen security. Redrawing the security map from missiles to megabytes. If trade was the G7's stress test, then security was its proving ground, and Canada was determined to shift the paradigm. As Israeli airstrikes intensified and Iranian drone counterattacks escalated, the G6, minus Trump, issued a joint call for calm. French President Macron warned against regime change tactics in Iran, arguing they'd destabilize an already volatile region. With Trump gone, Prime Minister Carney stepped up, rallying support for Ukraine and announcing a fresh batch of Canadian sanctions against Russia's defense sector. Ukraine's President Zelensky secured a $2 billion support package from Canada, even as his planned meeting with Trump was abruptly scrapped. But the real shift came in the form of digital defense. Canada and the UK unveiled the Common Good Cyber Fund, backed with a $7 million starter boost, to combat transnational digital repression. Meanwhile, a new agreement linking Canada's Air Safety Institute with Britain's AI Security Institute signaled a pivot toward tech-driven national defense. No longer just about boots and tanks, the G7's evolving doctrine is about defending the digital frontier, where lines of code matter more than lines of troops. Canada, once again, positioned itself at the forefront of next-generation security. And as the G7 winds down, Canada looked beyond its seven-seat formation, reaching out to rising global powers. Expanding the diplomatic grid, India, Mexico, and new global gears. Beyond the traditional Club of Seven, Canada used the summit to forge fresh global traction. Prime Minister Carney extended invitations to India, Mexico, South Korea, Brazil, South Africa, and Australia, redefining the G7's perimeter. One of the summit's biggest surprises? A thaw in the long-frozen Canada-India relationship. After 2 years of tension following Ottawa's accusations of India's role in a Sikh separatist's death, Carney and Prime Minister Modi agreed to restore full diplomatic relations. High commissioners are returning and talks are underway on critical mineral trade, food security, and digital infrastructure. But this new chapter came with a warning light. CSIS, Canada's intelligence agency, simultaneously reissued public concerns about Indian interference. It's a reset, but one running with the parking brake still partially engaged. On the Mexican front, Trump's cancellation of his meeting with President Claudia Sheinbaum left a diplomatic vacuum. Still, conversations continue through Canadian and U.S. intermediaries about the USMCA, border coordination, and regional stability. Through it all, Carney's outreach to non-G7 democracies revealed a larger strategy. If the old engines of global governance are sputtering, new ones are being built, distributed, interconnected, and capable of running cleaner and stronger. And that brings us to the final lap, where this summit's true legacy begins to take shape. Final takeaway: Canada's blueprint in a fractured G7. The 2025 G7 summit in Kananaskis won't be remembered for unity, but for a pivot. Trump's early departure and refusal to back a joint Ukraine statement laid bare the G7's fault lines. But amid the disruption, Canada's Mark Carney seized control and turned dysfunction into deliverables. Rather than chase a grand communique, Carney leaned into bilateral horsepower, inking deals on AI safety, cyber defense, critical minerals, and trade realignment. From restoring diplomacy with India to launching next-gen security alliances, Canada didn't just host the summit, it retooled it. The legacy won't be in flashy headlines, but in the durable frameworks now taking shape. Let's shift into your thoughts. Is Canada's bilateral strategy the future of diplomacy? Did Trump's early exit weaken U.S. influence, or was it tactical? Can AI and cyber defense really anchor global security? Share your take in the comments. For more in-depth breakdowns on policy, powertrains, and global auto dynamics, subscribe to Piston Pundit and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching. And until next time, keep your engines tuned and your politics torque-aligned. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.